The funny thing is, most of the people that I meet, students, guys at petrol stations, security guards. You see, let me tell you what has been the biggest surprise. It's the security guards. It's the guys at the service stations. Guys you never thought would watch you and me.
Sure.
They're the guys that step up and say, my brother, you've taught me so much.
Yeah.
Then you get executives. People who you think would be proud to come and say it to you. They come. It's shocking, bruh. When I go to the airports, the guys that are packing the bags, the guys that are putting those plastic around bags,
Sure.
it's overwhelming. But it gives me a sense of responsibility because I wanted to stop talking on social media. But when you get these guys stepping up to you and saying, I've learned so much, I'm beginning to read a lot more, and I would like to continue to do that. Please don't stop what you're doing. That just, it disempowers you. It disempowers you from feeling that you've got a decision to make on your own. You're now responsible for other people's thoughts and other people's futures, that you have to keep doing what you're doing.
Why did you want to quit?
I want to focus on making money now. I want to be selfish. And I just want to get out of the limelight. But now I realize it's not a game. There are people who, because they always refer Rutendo and Penuel, you guys are doing so much for us.
Yeah.
So I realized that it's now a responsibility. Our lives are not just our own anymore. We're responsible for those who listen to us, believe in our message, and are changing their lives because of that. Yeah. And I think I was also...
But should you buy into that? I'm trying to...
Yeah.
If people are... Because there's the danger of... Let's go extreme. There's the danger of people wanting you to be a messiah and you taking it on, and what we've seen other people that take on the responsibility, what happens to them versus, for example, being selfish. And we see the guys who are selfish who end up becoming billionaires, and then they get celebrated. They create jobs, they buy sports teams, they own private jets. And you're like, if I look at the two, the guy who actually wanted to serve the people ended up poor, dead. The people carry on with their lives. And then these guys who are selfish seem to live longer.
Look, for me, what I'm doing has got me so much notoriety. I've got a lot of important people, wealthy people who contact me, wanting to speak to me, wanting me to do certain things for them. It has enhanced my marketing consultancy.
That's dope. Commission.
But that is not the reason I did what I did. If you remember, when I started, what I was doing is I wanted to put Zimbabwe's story on the map. I wanted to put the struggle that Zimbabweans are going through into people's minds. Yeah. And I wanted to change how people can assist Zimbabwe. And quite frankly, I'm not necessarily taking credit for it. But when I look at South Africa's position on Zimbabwe, the government, government officials, they've changed. They speak about Zimbabwean sanctions. They want Zimbabwean sanctions gone. They're demanding that Zimbabwean sanctions must go. When it comes to our elections and there's bias in the media, the South African government is going against the odds, standing up and saying that every country has got electoral problems. The Americans have their own electoral problems. Go to court if you've got issues. Don't come here and try to have a media frenzy to de-campaign a country. Go to court if you feel that there was rigging and so forth. That makes me feel like what we do matters and what we do has an impact. And for a country like Zimbabwe, having the support of a powerful country like South Africa is very significant, very important. And to have even Fikile Mbalula starting to say that the opposition of Zimbabwe is an opposition that is a puppet of the West, here to destabilize, it's very encouraging, because when we said it in the beginning, we sounded like we're insane. So that shows me that the messages that we propagate through these platforms matter because they can influence policy. Yeah. They can influence bilateral relations between nations, and they can awake citizens of a country to start behaving appropriately or in a more conscious manner to bring the freedoms and the changes that they want to see in their society. So whether I become a billionaire, whether I make money, I think that becomes less important because the agenda and what we're doing is bigger. And especially for our generation that was beginning to look like we're a lost generation. We stand for nothing. We're all about consumption and enjoying life. I am glad to be part and parcel of those that are trying to make a change and a difference and make this society have meaning and stand for something, and probably to achieve something, economic independence of our people, or at least the emancipation of the mind to take us to that economic independence.
Firstly, I want to give a shout out to you, man. And I think I said this the last time we sat down. The number of Zimbabweans, specifically Zimbabweans that have come up to me and have told me that they've watched our sit downs and they're like, hey, that guy Matinyarare or Rutendo, I regardless of how they feel, because some of them, they come up to me and they're like, that guy doesn't know what he's speaking about. But for the fact that they Zim, it opens up an audience that maybe I would not have had, because maybe they feel like no one is actually speaking for them, whether they agree or not. I've spoken to Hopewell. I'm hoping to sit with him at some point this year. He's meant to be your rival, because every time you come up, they're like, get better voices like Hopewell Chinono and the likes. And I'm like, look, I'm hoping I'll get him. And one of the things I will raise, when I sit with him, is going to be his views on you. So I just want to say thank you again for that. Not that I was trying to, but it's nice to know that there are people outside of South Africa that also consume what I do, even outside of our conversations. And it's because of your education and your presence. Secondly, I want to ask, you've been accused of being a ZanaPF puppet a lot. Has ZanaPF started paying you? Has the government of Zim started paying you? And I ask this not as a tricky question, as a question of something that has to happen. Because the reason I'm asking, because you raised the opposition. ZanaPF is the leading party in Zim. They are running and governing the country. The work that you're doing is not political. It's to highlight Zimbabwe as a nation that needs assistance and that has been hamstrung by invisible sanctions, invisible to the rest of the world. And you're like, I'm putting Zimbabwe first. I want Zimbabwe to rise again. I want Zimbabwe to be great, regardless. Whether ZANU's in charge, but it does benefit ZANU. And a responsible president, whether it's Mnangagwa, responsible leadership in Zim is meant to be like, maybe this guy doesn't like us. Maybe he likes us. We don't know. But the work he's doing has a positive impact even on us. We need to, even if it's not us, maybe through an NPO, a system. So have they started paying you? And if they haven't started paying you, is that something you're looking to do? Because I think it needs to happen as soon as possible.
I always believe that the intention of your work is what matters. So my intention was never to get paid when I started doing this. It was always just to tell the Zimbabwe story and to let the Zimbabwe side that is never let out in the mainstream media to be known by people. And thanks to you for giving me the platform, because this platform has given people a perspective that is different about what is really going on in Zimbabwe. Yeah. And I have to say that many people see Hopewell as my rival. I don't see him as my rival because I think he's given disproportionate coverage by mainstream media, while people like myself are silenced. But what is ironic is that a platform like yours has given me a voice to actually rival the people like Hopewell. He's not the only one. Yeah. Opposition members are also given disproportionate coverage. And what is ironic is that our narrative has actually won the day. So the issue of sanctions, which was generally said there's no sanctions that exist according to the Hopewells and the opposition, it has become known by the opposition.
I'm thinking of Nelson.
You got people like Fadzai Mahere that are on mainstream TV all the time. SABC gives them disproportionate coverage. Nelson Chamisa is given disproportionate. Well? Yes, he's opposition as well. Okay. They're the ones that are given a voice on ENCN, on SABC. And I think SABC is actually breaking the mandate of the Broadcasting Act because they are biased and they continue to give them a disproportionate coverage. But even under those conditions, the few times that I've come on this show and other shows, I've been able to articulate a narrative that has been able to give people another side of the story. And now the notion that Zimbabwe is where it is because of just corruption and because of misgovernance has now been debunked, and everybody understands that there are sanctions. They understand that these sanctions are destroying Zimbabwe and affecting neighboring countries, South Africa in particular. And we've been able to turn even the leadership of South Africa to start understanding that narrative. That means that we have won a battle in which there was manufacturing of consent, silencing of truths in order to advance a Western false narrative that seeks to try and remove government in Zimbabwe by getting it isolated by the region. We have reversed that.
But we can agree that Chamisa, the other gentleman is?
Chamisa.
No, there was another one you mentioned. Opposition.
I mentioned Chamisa. I mentioned Fadzai Mahere, who's also a member. Fadzai Mahere.
Fadzai Mahere. I'd like to think all of you guys want Zim to prosper. It just depends on from which perspective. It's
That's-
not that they're trying to destroy Zim.
That's not true. You cannot advance Zim by partnering with the Americans to then impose sanctions on your country, block it from being able to develop economically, block it from getting payments for its exports, and block it from trying to trade or trying to get loans from other countries. You cannot advance a country by imposing economic warfare. And the people that are doing this, Chamisa is a lawyer, Fadzai Mahere is a lawyer. They all know that imposing unilateral sanctions or illegal sanctions that collectively punish civilians is actually a crime against humanity. They could never be doing that if they had the interest of Zimbabwe at heart and if they wanted Zimbabweans to prosper. Same as Hope Chunwano. When not too long ago, in 2017, he was the biggest activist against sanctions in Zimbabwe. But he was hoping to be given a position at the Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation where he was promised a position as CEO. When he didn't get that position, he turned around, started supporting the American narrative. Many believe he started being paid by the Americans to go against the narrative that there are sanctions and to pretend like there are no sanctions. And every problem in Zimbabwe is about corruption of ZanaPF and ZanaPF not delivering services because it just is corrupt. And we are saying, what happened to the narrative of sanctions he used to speak about? How did he used to tell people that sanctions in Zimbabwe are wrong and they are affecting the lives of the common person? And then all of a sudden he changes the moment he doesn't get a position as CEO. Which brings me to the question you asked. Do I get paid by ZanaPF? No. And even if they don't pay me for the next 20 years, I would still continue to do what I'm doing because I did not start doing this because I want to get paid. However, having said that, there are many people who are ZanaPF, some are non-partisan, business people that have begun to help us in our struggle.
Okay.
So the legal battle that we're having in South Africa, it requires a lot of resources, a lot of financial resources. Yes, my company has been sponsoring a lot of that, but we've also then begun to have a lot of Zimbabweans who've become part and parcel of supporting our struggle directly or indirectly by giving us business, marketing, image
So that you have
consultancy.
resources.
So that we
That's
have
dope.
Yes, absolutely.
Fadzai Mahere, I just wanted to mention, shout out to her. I don't know her. It's a woman.
Yes.
I think that's very important. It's sad what you're saying to me, and I didn't want to come here and discuss Zimbabwean politics, but I will touch on this because I wanted to speak about South Africa. You're speaking about Hopewell and Fadzai and Nelson, and you're saying you don't think they have Zimbabwe's interest as their primary because they wouldn't be pushing this narrative that they're pushing. But one of the things that's disturbed me that you've said in the past is you seem to somewhat be pro-ANC and pro-Cyril. And they sound like the guys you're speaking about because they work with the West. They work with the Americas and the like. And if you look at the agendas they seem to push, of which when they are incompetent, it's the same story, corruption, black leadership, but they still work with these same guys. Do you still support the ANC and Cyril, especially because it's an election year? If you had to suggest to South Africans that, look, this is the party you should vote for, you still say we must vote ANC?
I've always said that we must vote ANC because there is no alternative. If we want black people to continue to retain power in South Africa, and if we want a political party that is most likely to change black people's lives and has changed black people's lives, I actually believe and still maintain that it is the ANC. And the reason I say that is that currently they continue to hold the biggest black mandate in the country of any other political party. EFF is not yet close to holding the black mandate of the black people of South Africa. They do hold a lot of young people's mandate. They do hold a lot of young people's aspirations, but not all black people. We still got moderates. We still got people who are in the middle. We still got people that are on the total left and total right who support ANC and they're black. They believe that the ANC is a moderate political party that will be able to deliver their aspirations. With the EFF, it's too left. But with the EFF, we've also seen them compromise and holding hands with the right, the DA, a racist political party. The EFF has voted with the DA, given them power in certain metropolitans. And you ask yourself, can they really carry a leftist mandate if they're going to be giving power to the right so that the right can run municipalities, can ingrain its power in those municipalities, and ultimately at the end of the day make their own electorate, which is a left-leaning electorate, believe that it's okay to vote for a right-leaning racist political party that actually represents the apartheid era. And that's what makes me feel that at least the ANC has not pretended like it can be friends with a right-wing DA.
But that's not true. You know, Cyril's ANC is favored by the DA. John Steenhuisen has said they would comfortably go into coalition with the ANC. And Cyril has never said anything bad. He's never upset the DA, which you're accusing of being racist, similar to like a Jacob Zuma, where the country was shut down and there was marching. Are you going to say Julius Malema's EFF, of which, yes, they voted with the DA in certain matters, is more compromised than a Cyril's ANC when it comes to partnering with the DA?
Absolutely, because the ANC, even though they had 48% in certain areas and could have chosen to go into a coalition with the DA, they never did that in any municipality.
Isn't that arrogance more than anything? Or maybe the ability to get a smaller party, because I just need 1 or 2%. I don't need these guys with maybe 10, 15, because they're going to want more of a compromise. Well, the small party, maybe they just want one guy to be a face, or we can still bully them. These white guys are going to use this to try and throttle us. To me, the DA had less votes than the ANC, so they would never really be able to have as much power to tell the ANC what to do. And I think they could have reached a compromise with the DA if that's what people say the ANC wanted. Sure.
But the reason they didn't go with the DA is they are clearly articulating that they've got very opposed or diametrically opposed objectives and ideologies that they don't feel that they can work together. They would have worked together all along. Sure. They would have had a very powerful government in the terms that they would be able to take their 35% and their 40%, put them together. It would give them quite an overwhelming majority, but they didn't. And I believe that the reason they didn't is because they feel that they are ideologically opposed, number one. Number two, the ANC's compromise has not been with a political ideology per se, much more than it has been about aligning with those who control the economy. And I believe that this comes all the way back from CODESA. There were certain promises made at CODESA by the business community to the ANC. Yeah. Do not destabilize the boat. Do not take our factors of production. Do not take the economy from us, and we will deliver in certain ways. We'll create jobs. We'll pay taxes. We will sponsor you politically to make sure that the ANC can always campaign to be in power. But I believe that the business community of South Africa has shown its duplicitousness. The white business community has illustrated that it never really wanted to be in bed with the ANC. It wanted to make black people comfortable. Within that period, it started pushing a neoliberal agenda, and they now feel that they've created circumstances or conditions enough where there's enough educated black people who will be comfortable voting for a white political party. And now that very same business community is reneging on its promise to the ANC, sabotaging the economy, sabotaging the very same companies that they asked the ANC to keep in their hands, sabotaging companies like Eskom, where they continue to get the majority of the contracts and deals. They're sabotaging them in order for the ANC to look bad so that people can begin to vote for a white party. And they're expecting black middle class, black executives, and black educated people to start voting for the DA. For me, this is a watershed moment because the ANC are beginning to realize that they never loved us. They never cared about a black political party being in power, but they actually always wanted to take back power and bring it back to white South Africans legally and democratically so that apartheid can continue politically, legally. And I think the ANC is now well aware of this. And even though they've got this class of people that have got resources and money, they now realize that they cannot work with these people. And
Cyril is a beneficiary of some of the things you're speaking about, and he's not the only one. There are many ANC leaders, because you spoke about the promises they made, of which sponsoring, creating jobs, etc., etc. Part of it was BEE agreements, and you're expecting myself. The ANC makes me angry. I don't want to vote for them, and there's a lot of us. And I happen to be one of those, I guess, educated young black people who were meant to carry on with the ANC's mandate to liberate specifically the majority. And now, yes, we are being wooed. It's correct. We're being wooed to look into potential DA. It looks like they govern better. Any other party. And you're telling us the ANC is realizing this. But if Abo Cyril and all the other ANC beneficiaries, of which Trevor Manuel is another one, and he says he's left the ANC after benefiting and enjoying, they are not willing to give back. They will tell us, keep voting for us. But Abo Cyril are not going to let go of the things that they're benefiting from, the business community. And it's worse because from what I've read in the past year or two, they want to finish BEE. They want to remove it as a requirement for doing business with the government. The same Shanduga, maybe Pembani, maybe African Rainbow Minerals, I don't know what Saki Matozoma's company is, Safiga, all of them now that they've enjoyed and they're comfortable, want to remove those things. So it becomes difficult if they were saying this to me, if Cyril was saying this to me, or someone else, Paul Mashatile, to tell me this, and I'm like, we're not where you are, and when are you not even willing to give away what you're enjoying from the same people you're saying are problematic?
I think we need to define who is the beneficiary here. So if we accept that everything that is in South Africa belongs to Black South Africans and belonged to Black South Africans from time immemorial, and if we accept that apartheid was a crime against humanity, and if we accept that any proceeds that came out of apartheid were unjust enrichment, and therefore they are not, the people who have them are not entitled to have them. This means that the Black South Africans and the Black South African leadership, the ANC, had an opportunity to dismantle the entire system by taking all factors of production from the people that currently hold them, which is the white South Africans, the criminals that stole, that benefited from, and that continue to be inheritors of a crime against humanity. The ANC could have taken those. They could have liquidated the companies. They could have nationalized the companies and taken everything that they have, but they didn't. So to me, the beneficiaries are actually the white South Africans that continue to get rich, that continue to get jobs in an economy that their ancestors stole, and they became beneficiaries and inheritors of unjust enrichment.
I agree.
The ANC decided not to do that.
I agree with you.
So they are the beneficiaries.
Sure.
So therefore, when a Cyril was told that you are a beneficiary, he could have a different perspective. But remember, they'll tell you that we decided to let these people keep what they have so that we try and have a semblance of the South Africa of old continuing now and benefiting the South Africans that it disadvantaged previously. That is the dream. That is the ideal idea. Mugabe believed in the same thing for 20 years until he realized that white Rhodesians had no intention to actually meet up any of their promises, but instead, after 20 years, they wanted to remove him by sabotaging the economy so that they can now retake the economy or put puppets that were going to run the economy in a manner that favors whiteness. That's what's happening in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I think the lesson has been learned in the ANC.
I don't think the lesson has been learned. Abo Cyril are not saying what you're saying. You're speaking on his behalf. He's never said this. They're not willing to let go of those things or to renegotiate. And I would not listen to him asking me to vote ANC when he's not shifting or apologizing or acknowledging. Guys, BEE failed. The bulk of BEE monies landed back in white hands. To be honest, myself, my brother-in-law, Patrice, Julius was right. We're actually not as wealthy as you guys think. A lot of our money is paper money. If we upset the white establishment, tomorrow we'll be poor like you. So we need to keep putting in work to actually make this wealth tangible for ourselves and for you guys as well. But he's not saying this, and I refuse to assume the best of him. Considering so many other factors around the man himself. And that is not good enough for me to vote for an ANC until they say such things where I'm like, okay, and then show the remorse and tell me what is the plan. Because currently there isn't. Cyril is still taking loans from the West. There's still pala issues. His bank statements are still sealed. And then I must go vote for that. Not him. I apologize for only using him. The entire ANC, Ombalula, Opegicele, you look at the work they've done. The destruction of Eskom, which, like I said, I agree with you. I believe there are certain non-ANC and non-black factors that prefer a destroyed economy, destroyed state-owned enterprise, so that we look and say, as the clever new blacks, look at what this black government's doing. Brew, I'm going with the DA. I mean, brew, they're destroying Eskom, load shedding. That's obviously what they want. But these guys are not coming out to say, guys, it's not us. This is what we're doing. It is these guys. And until they do that, I'm like, you're complicit. Because you're the security guard for Mlungu's things, you must tell me, look, I think Mlungu's stealing his own things. I think Mlungu is killing his own rhinos and pretending that we are the ones poaching the rhinos. We're not. I'm here with you. And I'm like, but you live with Mlungu. No, don't worry about that. That's my issue.
For me, I don't agree. You had the gentleman from Arise sitting here.
Mpotakada.
Yes, Mpota. Yeah. And he told you his beautiful story about how he built himself up and how he was able to start a cleaning company at a university in South Africa and then make enough money to start getting into Bitcoin, and that turned him into the multimillionaire that he has become.
Yeah.
That story would have never been told in any other country that did not have some form of BEE and some form of policy of redress. Wouldn't have happened. It never happened in Zambia. Never even happened in Zimbabwe, which was very radical, because Zimbabwe did not start with an automatic black empowerment policy when it got independence. You guys started like that. And you built a black middle class. Some of the people that are bitter today about what has happened with their differences with the ANC, and some of them, I talk to them every day. They got fired from some of the parastatals. We speak. And I tell them that you have a nerve to tell me that the ANC has a problem when you are sitting in a multi-million rand home where you bought it. You have been receiving bonuses of multi-million rands ever since you left university because of the BEE policies that this government has. Something I've also said to Dalimpofu. Dalimpofu is a beneficiary of BEE. I don't necessarily think he's the best advocate. I don't necessarily like his arguments. I don't think he's as sharp as they make it out to be. But look at how privileged Dali is. Look at how he gets briefed consistently again and again. It is because of BEE that Dali is where he is, but he will not accept that. Julius Malema was a beneficiary of corruption within the ANC when they were in the Youth League. These guys became multi-millionaires in the ANC Youth League because they were able to get tenders. They were able to get to make sure that this person gets a tender. And after they do that, they were able to get kickbacks. They never struggled with money, these guys, even though they were not so educated. They didn't have good jobs, but they had money. Does Floyd know what struggling is ever since he left university? I don't think so. That is BEE and its benefits. That is the benefit of the very same system people are demonizing now, only because it's not going as well as it used to be. But till today, they're construction companies, billionaires, black billionaires. South Africa is the most black billionaires on the African continent. Yet when you guys got independent, you had some of the poorest black people on the continent. How did that happen?
I didn't know that. I would have assumed Nigeria, but please continue.
Oh, no. You guys have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, of the 44,000 US dollar millionaires in the world, in Africa, in South Africa, I think 19,000 of those are black. And they are coming from sectors, they're not coming from the taxi industry. They're coming from sectors like construction, IT, they're coming from marketing. They are leading marketing agencies in this country that are black owned. All that was because of the policies of BEE. So it didn't just benefit the Ramaphosas.
Sure.
In fact, there are people who became richer than Ramaphosa who were not known because of BEE.
I want to come in here, Rutendo. One of my first mentors when I got to Joburg is a gentleman called Vuyo Jack. He founded with Chow Chow EmpowerDex.
Yes.
And they became the first BEE rating company, etc., etc. It's not important. What's important is this. Vuyo Jack taught me, he's written books as well about, I think it's 7 pillars of black economic empowerment before it became triple BEE. There's socioeconomic, there's skills development, there's employment equity, there's all these things. And I have to agree with you in saying there's been a lot of progress under the same BEE policy that a lot of us either are not aware of or we almost brush it to the side. That the reason you are hired, this upsets white people. The reason you are hired is because you're black.
Yes.
You may have been at the same level. You may have been better than the white person. You may have been slightly less. But the bottom line is they needed to hire black. And that's the reason you got the job and can buy a nice house and send your kids. I fully agree with that. And when it comes to that policy, I really think the ANC government did well, could do better, but tried. The issue is this one pillar called preferential procurement, which is the one now you're speaking about mostly, or the one that I think we have the biggest issue with. Because when we speak white monopoly capital, when we speak the factors of production, the means of production, that's preferential procurement now there. That's the tenders and the biggest what. So this is our issue, or the people that complain, outside of the ignorance. The political elite, and then some of the people that are connected to the political elite, including the marketing agencies, the IT companies. I wanted to throw the names, and it's unfair because some of these people are going to drop me DMs, but it's okay. They know themselves. There's marketing companies that make millions because of BEE. There are IT companies I know now that initially merged with white companies. Now they stand on their own. I think some of them are listed. There are construction companies. There's a lot of very wealthy black people. The issue that people have, and the reason why it feels like BEE has failed, because it has. Vuyo Jack has said to me, I think over 80% of the value generated, I don't know how many hundreds of billions, at the end of the value chain ends up in the same white hands. The problem is that there's a small group. We can count all of them. You and I can go back and forth. Maybe we can come up with 200 black people that are rich in this country. But it's still only 200 out of 62 million people or 48 million black people. And it hasn't done what it's needed to do. And the ANC government is meant to, and this is my criticism, it's meant to come out and say, guys, we had this idea, and this is what we've done. This is how many kids we've put through tertiary that would have never gone there. It's how many black doctors we have today would have never had, lawyers, etc. Senior advocate Dalimpofu today, we have to say, has gotten, in the same way Elon Musk makes money because of government tenders in America. This is what we've done. We feel we can do better. They did that with triple BEE. It's still not working. This is where we're wrong. I'm Cyril, I own game farms, they are not telling some of us, we're a small group of middle class that want to vote for other parties. They're not being honest with us. Instead, they still go and they gaslight. If you don't vote for us, you won't get social grants. They still want to speak about apartheid. To what you're saying, when you get upset with a person being like, how dare you, after getting BE placements, after getting tenders, after living in a big home in Bryanston, want to complain, the ANC, that person should be someone else, not you. And you're right. I'm saying that group is so small. And not all of us are going to be rich, of course, but it looks like they are not doing the things they're meant to be doing. They are still working with the people we're claiming are a problem. And they're not being honest to us to say, look, we fell short somewhere, but we're also not willing to let go of this privilege that we go or share it with you guys either.
I think I don't agree with you there in the aspect that you say there's about 200 people that, it's a number. Sorry. But I want us to keep reflecting on what it is that the papers say. The 44,000. And 44,000, I'm probably 2 years out.
Sure.
So probably it's actually risen from 44,000. The 44,000 millionaires, US dollar millionaires in this country.
Colored and Indian.
Yes.
The 19,000.
Yes, the 19,000 is includes colors and Indians, correct? Those are the people that are classified as black. All right. But what I'm trying to argue is that there is a whole lot more black people in this country that have been empowered and become multimillionaires.
Sure.
But those are the guys that are hustling. There's a lot of people that want to be rich. There's a lot of people that want to be entrepreneurs. There's a lot of people that want tenders, but they haven't done what it takes to get those tenders and to get this business.
Yeah.
That is why now you've got the issue of foreigners coming into this country, starting spazas, starting service stations, starting businesses. I think you heard in Mpumalanga, there was that guy called Sam, a Zimbabwean boy.
Sam Holdings.
The guy didn't even have papers from what the documents say. Came here and had a fleet of trucks that carry coal.
Call him and Mashaba and Gayton McKanzie. He must go.
Not only is he doing that, there are a number of Zimbabweans in the Mpumalanga area that are actually monopolizing the carrying of coal outside the white corporations.
Sure.
Now, my question is, how does a Zimbabwean jump a border without papers, come into South Africa, start a business like that, dominate an arena? Where are the black South Africans? Where's Penuel? Why are they dominating? How are they dominating? That is what we now need to make.
ANC. That's why they benefit.
But if the corrupt ANC can so-called corrupt, get corrupted to that extent that a person makes money, where are the black South Africans to be corrupted as well?
No, it's okay. We can ask where the blacks are. It's a very valid question. Enabled him to make money. And the government is meant to be the one that's keeping out people because we have laws and it's failing. And you're saying keep voting for this guy. You just gave me another example of why I mustn't vote for the
But
ANC.
we have assumed that they have corrupted their way into the system. You understand?
Because let me Sam didn't have papers and became rich. Shout out to him. He's a hustler. Guys like that get to rule the world. And personally, on a personal level, I respect guys like him. I'd meet him. I'd be like, I'm so proud of you. This is great. But when we're speaking politically and those things, and you're trying to get me to vote, and I'm like, we're assuming this guy came here without papers, he became rich, you're asking valid questions, where are the black South Africans? The ANC government should never ever dare ask that question. Because I'd be like, you guys can go jump. How dare you be like, well, we hired him because where are you guys?
But let me.
Yes,
but remember, I'm not the ANC.
Sure.
All I'm trying to point out is that there are opportunities.
There are definitely
But why am I pointing out these opportunities? Because every single day when I'm failing to make that extra million, I keep asking myself, am I doing all that I can?
Yeah.
And I have to admit, when I see a Sam who's less educated than me, who's got less qualifications than me, I've got genuine papers to be in South Africa, but I'm failing to do what he did. Yeah. I've got to accept that I'm falling short.
100%.
And I want to say to all Black South Africans, we have to start holding ourselves accountable, like I'm doing, to say, if I've got the papers, if I've got the degree, if I went to UCT, if I am a lawyer, why am I failing to do what a guy with no O-levels is doing? How does he come into a country, no papers, and he succeeds at this, but me, as Zimbabwean with papers, I'm failing to do what he did. So the opportunities,
personal accountability is something I have
and the
to agree
opportunities
with
are
you 1,000%.
But that's what I'm saying, that the ANC has made these opportunities, and this is just one person. I'm saying Mpumalanga is full of these Zimbabweans who control these trucking companies.
Jesus, do you know what you're doing with what you're saying now?
I'm being honest.
You are literally sending people out there to be like, hey, Rutendo said, go and investigate. Go investigate Mpumalanga. He said, Konama Zimbabweans that own trucking companies.
Not only trucking companies.
Jeez, now
coal mines.
More guys are catching strays.
Coal mines. But the question that helps us to get to the bottom of this is not just going to fight those Zimbabweans. It's saying, how did they do it?
Yeah.
What are they doing that we are not doing? So if you're a guy with a degree, we are a township. Ask yourself, why am I hungry? When a Zimbabwean can come, get a coal mine, get coal trucks, and start doing business. How did he get the first one? Yeah. How did he finance it? Where did the money come from? We have to start asking these questions as Black people, because white people started asking the same question about Jews. They started asking the same question about the English. Yeah. They started asking the same question about Italians. And when whites started having a joint mentality to say, let's do what these Jews, what these Greeks come and do when they come as immigrants. And don't forget, the Jews, the Italians, the Portuguese all came as illegal immigrants into this country.
100%.
They came as refugees. Yes. But I'm talking about in South Africa. Sure. They came as refugees. They came as people running away from persecution in Europe. They came running away from the Second World War. And when they got here, the Afrikaners saw these guys prospering more than them. Yeah. And they started asking, why are they prospering? And that's how the Afrikaner Broederbond started copying some of the techniques that these guys utilized. They started asking themselves, Indians came from Durban. They were indentured labor. Yes, we didn't make policies as restrictive to them as Black people, but why are they owning shops? Sure. Why are they becoming multimillionaires? They asked themselves those questions and started consolidating their own industries and serving each other, buying from each other. They did not chase the Portuguese. They did not chase the Indians. Yeah. They said, let's do what they do.
I want to add to what you're saying.
That's what we need to start doing it. And I'm saying that ANC is one of the biggest failures, is failing to give Black people the ideology on how to create wealth and to create a Black economy that's going to help them be empowered. They glorified and created a class of young people who particularly came from the ANC Youth League of Thabo Mbeki, who flaunted money, who bought Ferraris, who consumed, who drank champagne, who became these drug lord type living people who didn't teach other Black South Africans that wealth is not just to consume, is to actually consolidate and create more businesses, which is what Indians teach each other, which is what the whites teach each other, which is what the Jews teach each other. That's the mistake. The Thabo Mbeki Youth League, that where we started actually seeing the flaunting of wealth, failed to create an ideology of wealth creation. That is why sometimes when I hear Julius Malema and EFF saying they're about Black economic emancipation, I've always asked, were you doing Black economic emancipation when you were in the Youth League and squandering money on champagne, squandering money on women, and paying 10,000 mavuso every morning to the people that you had finished chowing? Was that empowerment?
She was empowering the woman in her family.
No.
10,000.
How do you empower a woman by giving her money to spend instead of giving her money to start a business?
I wanted to say, Rutendo, I wanted to say this. Has it slipped my mind? It slipped my mind. Oh, I wanted to say the difference. This is the way the difference is. And look, political leadership is only one aspect. And it saddens me that we've also colonized or contained our minds to be like the only people that can free us are politicians. Because all the examples you used, the Jewish community, the Afrikaner community, the Italians, the Greeks, the Indians, etc., they found good leadership that was focused on putting their group first. Whether that leadership is political, the National Party, whether that group is a business group, whether that group ends up actually funding another group which is in power. Could be a Jewish group that funds Nelson Mandela's ANC, the Eric Sampsons of this world, the Nati Kirschers of this world, the Brian Joffes of this world. But they make sure that as much as we are friends with Nelson Mandela, what a great man, great statesman, but we always, look, this is my community, please make sure that we are okay as well. Africans, Black Africans, and in particular Black South Africans, seem to be struggling with finding those type of leaders. And you're almost emphasizing that this has been their failure, the ANC, to say, if we are claiming to be a group that's meant to emancipate Black people, it doesn't have to be all of them. The rest can all get jobs. Like, guys, we're going to be a group of, let's say, the same 19,000. But we're going to be so focused as a Black Business Council, as a NEFCOC, to say, you guys must make sure you're creating jobs so that when they ask us questions, we'll say the 19,000s could be half Indians as well. But let's say 10,000 Black Africans who have money. You guys must create the jobs. And then we'll become like a Broederbond. Vositebe, I spoke about Fargin with the Jewish community, whatever group that it is. And then we'll do it. But they're failing. And for someone like myself, it's like, if they're not going to do it, maybe I need to look somewhere else. Not necessarily as a Black African, but let's say I was. And say, look, I want a leader that sounds like what the Broederbond leadership sounded like. That sounds like what Jewish leaders sounded like. Never again. That sounds like whatever the Muslim, I don't know, it's judicial council, whatever it is in this country, what they sound like, so that they put us first and they move accordingly. And it's upsetting. But that's what I wanted to say. Sorry.
Before you go on,
I've got a question for you, and it was meant to come earlier, but I'll raise it now when you're done.
I think we need to accept that the system that we're living in is new to us. And so Africans are going to take time before they fully understand how to play this game. And we were discussing just before with Teuho about the book, The Lie of 1652. And he was acknowledging and appreciating the Black entrepreneurship that was behind this guy called Ashmao, who I said established himself as a trader within the Cape Port. He actually at some point became the port master of the area. And he was the one who was conducting business. But the very first thing that happened is he got arrested. People like him got killed for trying to create Black entrepreneurs and Black Broederbonds.
Yeah, and the organizations also get infiltrated.
And you need to remember that the divide and conquer has not stopped till today. If you look right now at the political space, Black people have formed little splinter parties after another just because they're getting financed by white capital to go against their own self-interest. Gayton McKanzie is busy making Zimbabweans sound like the enemy, Mozambicans sound like the enemy, while somebody is in the Cape wanting Cape independence and to take a portion of Gayton's country and where he supposedly comes from. And he's got no problem with that. That is indicative of why it's difficult for people to have a political ideology that teaches Black people to come together, buy together, and create an economic system that is going to advance them. And you have to know that there was never a school where the ANC was going to be taught how to create a Black political institution, which they created successfully, and then create a liberation movement, which they created successfully, and then create an economic liberation movement. You can't do everything all the time. You can't master everything all at once. The economic emancipation leg of the struggle is what they're learning now. Even ZanaPF, it took them 20 years to understand.
But they're keeping us from helping them.
To a certain extent, that's true. But the fact that we're having this conversation now, there is somebody who's listening. And you might say, well, we've been talking for a long time. I just gave you the example of how Zimbabwe's position in this region and the support it has been getting from the ANC has changed ever since we started having these discussions. Whether we are the influence or not, the point is that there has been a change that happened once we started having these discussions. So these discussions are important because we don't have think tanks. We don't have Broederbond think tanks. We don't have the Council on Foreign Relations think tanks to have these conversations. But at some point, we're going to have to understand that we have to put our political issues on the side, and we have to now start taking our ideological similarities to help us create institutions, organizations that are non-political, to think tank our way out of the crisis that we are not only in South Africa, but the whole of Africa.
I want to reference the book that you referenced, The Lie of 1652, A Decolonized History of Land by Patrick Tariq. Mellet. I hope I pronounced that correctly. For anyone who's interested. I'm not going to defend Gayton. I'm currently looking to potentially vote for Gayton under the PA. I don't really know the Patriotic Alliance besides Ukeni Gunene. I don't know the people behind it. I like Gayton personally. And of the options, what you're saying about the ANC is the best vehicle for the average black South African is what you're saying. For me personally, with my little vote, Gayton sounds like the best option for me now, but he's not by far the best. Some of the other guys are very close to him.
But doesn't Gayton remind you of the very same people mentioned in this book by Tariq, that they were these sellouts?
So I wanted to address that.
Khoi sellouts who were co-opted by the Boers to actually form commandos that went to hunt the San and other black peoples. That's what I think of when I think of Gayton.
No, I hear you. And I
Sellout, a person who will get used by white people.
Herman Mashaba?
Same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. The reason why I just used Gayton is that usually the Coloureds like to give themselves a parallel with the San and the Khoi. But people like Gayton were co-opted as a Khoi to go out and kill other Khoi in the San, to destroy them so that the Boers can take over their land.
Sure.
And that's what I feel Gayton is doing when he keeps quiet about the issue of Cape secession, but he's busy focusing on foreigners who've never been really a big problem to South Africa, because crime rates actually went down since foreigners started coming into this country, ironically.
Yeah, we're not going to go on that last line.
It's important for us to go on that last line.
Let me just address what I wanted to address. I want to vote for Gayton because he's currently my favorite leader. Not by far. I'd like to see what Tutuzane is going to do over the next few years. I like Musi Maimane as well. He believes in legalizing illegal foreigners, for example, which I very much am against. There's a couple of other guys that are pretty dope, but I'm not feeling the ANC. I'm not feeling the EFF. I do agree, and I've had Musi here, I've had Bongani Baloyi, I've spoken to Herman Mashaba. Without saying it directly, they are saying the DA is a racist party. And these were people that were in there given leadership positions. So who best than them? The person you're speaking about is probably Rob Hersoff, who is a mutual friend of myself and Gayton's. He probably does, in some way, help assist the Patriotic Alliance. I don't know, because he's never told me directly. But the association and the friendship would have you assume. And it's not just Rob and his money. Rob has a really great network. And Rob is quite an influential guy. He comes from a very influential family. So I can imagine if Rob says something like, oh, I love Gayton, he's great. Some of his friends, a lot of white people, but he's also friends with some well-off black. I'm not aware of any Indian and colored rich people that he knows, but he probably does. They would probably go and support that. And especially because he hates the ANC. So he's almost for anything against the ANC and the EFF. And Gayton happens to be a mate. So he might be funding. So to someone on the outside, it could look like Abo Rob and his people are funding a Gayton. And you're right. And it is something that all of us, including myself, need to always consider. Because if you know anything about history, if you know anything about how people move, you can't be naive about anything. Yes, Cape independence is one of the things Rob supports, along with many other people. I do not support Cape independence. I've never heard Gayton say he supports it. And if he does, I disagree with him if he ever says that. One of the things I've said to Rob directly is, and this was tongue-in-cheek, because I don't support Cape independence. I was saying, I'll support Cape independence if all of the citizens, specifically the rich white citizens in Cape Town, are barred from doing business in the rest of South Africa and cannot own any more businesses and properties in the rest of South Africa. Build yourselves from scratch. Because you guys want to isolate yourselves in the Cape, but still run Pick n Pay, Woolies, Capitec, ShopRite, Outsurance, all these companies, and milk. In the same vein, arguably, that South Africa milks the rest of the African continent and brings resources here. I'm like, cut the ties, don't own properties here, don't have business here, then have the Cape. But it was tongue-in-cheek to kind of explain that I think this is a silly thing, and it's you guys wanting to be like, we want an independent Camps Bay or an independent Sandton, as long as we can still suck money from Alex. And you're like, nah, that's rubbish. Gayton has gone on to support Israel. It's one of the things I don't agree with. I am not pro-Israel. I'm not pro-Palestine. to be fully honest, it is not a priority to me what's happening in the Gaza Strip, although I feel for human beings, innocent people that are being killed because of political squabbles, land issues, which have happened throughout history, etc. But I don't pick a side. I don't want people being like, so are you pro-Israel? I'm like, that rubbish when we've got bigger issues here is not for me. So it's one of the things that when Gayton spoke out about it, I was like, this is silly. He went on to try to defend it. I don't really care. The issue of the foreigners has been a hot topic. You and I have spoken about it. You and Ike Kumalu debated on my other channel on it. I still personally, and it still confuses the average man, I still personally have no issue with any human being that is trying themselves out in life, including Sam Holdings. That's why I said I could sit with Sam. I buy from Pakistani puzzle shops. I sit with illegal Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Malawians that I know are not here legally. Good people that wake up every day and work hard and try to get by because they're like, wait, where I come from at home, things are not great. And I get attacked for saying this. I get attacked for comparing economic immigrants from Zim to economic immigrants from KZN, the Eastern Cape. They're like, it's not the same. I'm like, I'll take it. But now we're speaking rule of law, which is now no longer about me. And we're speaking about borders which are colonial. And we're speaking about a Zimbabwe, a Malawi, a Nigeria, where I as a South African am not allowed to just go into that country legally. And if ever I'm caught, it's a crime. So we're like, look, we need to sort out the borders thing because it's what we inherited. And until we decide, we sit with Zimbabwe and we say, guys, this border thing is actually rubbish. We're going to have one ID, one identity document or whatever, one passport, at least in SADC, like what they've done. I think it's Namibia and Botswana. And then we can move freely. Until we've sat and had that conversation, which I think is also the failure of the ANC and other SADC leaders that should have done this a long time ago. Until then, can we please respect each other's space?
I think
so that's where the Herman and the Gayton thing comes in. But I just wanted to address that from my side. But the Cape Independence is something I don't support. And I wanted to specifically raise Rob Hersoff's name because I know when people are going to listen, they're going to be like, oh, he kept quiet because they knew I was speaking about his friend. He's probably co-opted as well. I like addressing these issues so that people are clear. Whether they agree or not, it's chilled. But at least it's addressed.
I think one of the biggest things that you need to remember about law is that law must be established. It must be practiced. It must be consistently practiced. And then it must set precedents for it to become established law.
Yeah, I forgot to touch on the white foreigners because I largely agree with you.
Yeah. So the problem with the South African context of what is an illegal and a legal immigrant is that it is inconsistent.
It's based on a timeline. It starts here.
Yes. It starts here.
And the fact that conveniently so.
And then when it starts here conveniently so, and then it legalizes certain illegal foreigners, then automatically it starts to become problematic. And that's why you see applying the law becomes very difficult. So you look at the white South Africans in this country. Many of them came during the perpetuation of a crime against humanity in which a minority government that did not have the mandate of the majority was the one determining who is legal and who is illegal. It actually told us at some point that black South Africans who lived in Bantustans were illegal South Africans. They couldn't just come into South Africa without a DOM pass. It also told us that even South Africans in South Africa needed a DOM pass to move freely. Otherwise, they were illegal and they had to be put behind bars.
Correct.
You all didn't accept that system because it was arbitrary. It had nothing to do with the majority rule and the law was not in public interest. And this is where you now see us say, how come black South Africans have problems with black Africans, yet the Europeans who came into this country illegally, who came here to invade, who came here to steal property, who are continuing to hold on to stolen property, who continue to harm black South Africans, many of whom we are living with, perpetuated crimes against humanity upon black South Africans. You don't see them as illegals, yet they are harming you, they harm the public interest, but you have an issue with a black foreigner who comes from Africa who does not harm you. That's point number one. Point number two, the ANC itself, when it wanted to fight for the liberation of South Africa, they went into other African countries without any visas, without even passports. As refugees,
right?
As refugees exiles. And as exiles and as liberation fighters. It was a unique situation. It wasn't unique in any different way.
No, I mean unique in the sense that people understood that there were issues here. In the same way that you've been trying to highlight sanctions, if we as South Africans understood that you guys have an issue, we'd understand.
Right.
But as long as you guys sound like you're defending ZANU, it becomes difficult
for us
to then welcome you.
But that's the problem. What is defending ZANU? Because who said ZANU is a problem? You were told that by the
So
people
black
who...
South Africans that left here left saying the apartheid government is a problem.
Yes,
and
100%.
other African countries understood.
Understood.
But now when you're leaving Zimbabwe, but you're not saying ZANU-PF is a problem.
No,
then
that's not why black
here?
Zimbabweans are leaving Zimbabwe.
No, I'm just saying I'm trying to explain the uniqueness of why
I understand.
black South Africans were welcomed.
But we need to say, black South Africans were welcomed because of a crime against humanity called apartheid.
Sure.
Black Zimbabweans are leaving Zimbabwe because of a crime against humanity of illegal sanctions acknowledged by the United Nations that it said are destroying jobs, destroying basic services, destroying healthcare, destroying education, and then causing black Zimbabweans to leave Zimbabwe to come to South Africa. They're not leaving.
I want to add for myself also, and corruption. For myself. No, it's not you.
Yes,
it's
but according to you, it's corruption. But what study or what research can actually back up what you're saying?
I'm not debating. I wanted to add that for myself.
But you can't just say things because you feel like, or because the media told you to say that.
ZANU?
No, okay. We must use evidence to back up our claims.
We can debate ZANU.
So ZANU has never been proved to misgovern Zimbabwe. That's why its education system, even under sanctions, still is the best in Southern Africa. It has never been proved to be a problem, which is why it treats HIV better than even in South Africa that's not under sanctions. You see, so when we start looking at metrics...
These are the things that make people then troll you.
They troll me.
Things you say.
They troll me, but the difference...
Because it's then like, go back to Zim then.
No.
Zim is so great.
But
then go back to Zim.
But it's the same thing. Europeans troll South Africa all the time, but they're living in South Africa. So why don't you tell them to go back to South Africa? Tell them to go back to Germany.
Those are facts.
Tell Bob Hertzhoff or whatever his name is.
His name is Rob Hertzhoff. Come on.
Tell Bob to go back to where he comes from. Nobody does that, but they're allowed to complain. They're allowed to state facts that this is being done better in another country than here. But that's not to say that we don't appreciate South Africa. We're just saying, let's not use propaganda that has been created by the media to start bad-mouthing ZanaPF without looking at the numbers or without looking at... So the sanctions are displacing people. So in the same way there was a crime against humanity of apartheid displacing the ANC into our countries, in the same way the ANC must now understand when people are displaced by sanctions, which in many ways Naledi Pandor has acknowledged, Fikile Mbalula has acknowledged. He's even started saying that Zimbabweans never came into South Africa before sanctions. Never said by the ANC before, but he's beginning to say that. Ramaphosa is beginning to say, these sanctions hurt my country. These people have to be displaced from their country. They come here. So there should be an acknowledgement of the similarities of the two. And that struggle that is happening in Zimbabwe, it means therefore South Africa has got to take a concerted effort to fight it, which is what Zimbabwe did for South Africa when ANC, PAC, and all these other guys were being displaced by the apartheid government. We just didn't sit. We fought wars. Hence, I keep insisting that Zimbabwe had to fight a war in Mozambique, they had to fight a war at the borders of South Africa and Zimbabwe, we had to fight wars internally. Namibia had to do the same, and so did Angola. We have to understand that that's what had to be done to end this crisis of refugees coming into the country. It might have taken a long time for South Africa to understand what is displacing Zimbabweans. But besides that, apartheid is one thing, but you must also understand that apartheid affected neighboring countries. They deindustrialized neighboring countries. They sabotaged some neighboring countries. They militarily attacked neighboring countries and lost these neighboring countries a lot of their infrastructure, a lot of their factories. And when we opened up to South Africa and said, let's begin to trade because South Africa is independent, apartheid companies that were being used by the Defense Council of the apartheid movement then went into our countries as companies going to do business, but they came with an unfair advantage that cannibalized our markets, killed our industry that was already suffering from the attacks of the apartheid government, the war, and the unfair advantage of apartheid. That causes the crisis that you see where Mozambique cannot sustain its people, Zimbabwe cannot sustain its people, Malawi cannot sustain its people. It's because of these factors that if you look at what they are, it's neocolonialism at play. And South Africa being a springboard of that neocolonialism through these white companies, through white capital, it continues to be a war that we have to acknowledge. So when refugees come into South Africa, because of Glencore and South African companies in Congo attacking, financing rebels, creating confusion so that they can continue to take resources with ease. When an implant in Zimbabwe continues to take our ore, brings it to South Africa to process it because they won't build a processing plant in Zimbabwe, those jobs that are exported to South Africa will eventually leave a gaping hole in Zimbabwe, and those people want to come. So we need to understand the crisis that we're in together as black people in this region by this continuous existence of an enemy among us. And that's why the issue of Cape independence is a threat to everybody. Cape independence is equivalent to putting an Israel in South Africa. Because once that Israel is established and the Cape colony establishes itself as it did in the 1800s, you will see that the West will arm it, they will give it nuclear weapons, they'll give it weapons to start attacking its neighbors, and guess whose neighbors? It's South Africa, so that they can begin to take land once again, as they did when the British and the Voortrekkers came here.
Very fair concern.
So these are the things that we're saying. South Africa's got to acknowledge that apartheid never ended. The apartheid weapons never stopped being used. The mercenaries continue to destabilize Africa. The companies continue to destabilize and sabotage Africa and to sanction African countries, to destroy their self-sufficiency, to destroy their companies, so that at the end of the day, they continue their domination. But when South Africa dominates the region, South Africans must understand that regional players and people in the region whose companies have been destroyed, whose jobs have been destroyed, will then become migrants and refugees in South Africa. And then when they come here, they will expect to be treated the way the ANC was treated when apartheid chased the South Africans into the region. Because when ANC went into the region, they did not say that we want to apply for refugee status. They said that we are Africans, Africa for all. Hence, when Chris Hani was arrested after the Hwange campaign in Botswana, Masire arrested Chris Hani and his group because they did not have papers. They also arrested them because they had weapons. They closed them in jail and they sentenced them to 6 years. But the AU sent people within 5 months to say you cannot say an African is a legal immigrant. You cannot arrest Chris Hani and his people who are fighting a liberation struggle. Release them. Masire was forced, not Masire, man, Kama Seretse.
Oh, okay.
He was forced to release them. They had to be released.
I've got two counters to what you're saying. And this is where the debate between, or with this issue of illegal foreigners, and in particular Zimbabweans, becomes an issue. I hear you on the crimes against humanity of apartheid, and I hear your argument for crimes against humanity by sanctions in Zimbabwe. The first thing is, if Zimbabweans want Black South Africans to understand, then to what you're saying about the AU, all African countries need to all agree that if we're going to say you can't be illegal on the African continent, let's make it continental. I, as a Black South African, should not be illegal in Botswana, in Zimbabwe, in the DRC. Now, it can't be that I must be understanding of illegals here, but then when I go to other countries, I'm then illegal. Because then it means you're being convenient. That's my first counter. My second counter is, as much as Abo Chris Hani were arrested, which I'm glad you raised that example. You as Zimbabweans need to explain to us as South Africans, and in particular Black South Africans, because that's where the bulk of the clash is. And you're right. We ignore the white foreigners and the colonizers, and we fight each other as brothers. You guys need to sell us your story and make us understand. You can't force yourself onto us and just expect us to understand. It's not fair. Because if we force ourselves onto you, it's going to cause a conflict. Similar. And on top of that, if you speak to us, be willing to listen to us. Because this is what happened with apartheid as well. Black South Africans would go into exile and they would be told, you will be based here. We can't go there and come dictate. No, we're going to be based here and we're going to do this.
But
those are the issues. And that's also what causes the frustration with an ANC and a ZANU. But guys, you're seeing me fighting with my brother. We've actually got a shared history. You're seeing us fight, and you guys are not coming to a table and sitting and being like, let me explain to my people, guys, look, these people actually helped us in the past. Can we maybe please accommodate it? You guys are keeping quiet. And then we're fighting with each other and we look like we're crazy.
But this is the question that I asked when we had the discussion with Ike, where Ike claimed that ANC and MK people were living in camps in Zimbabwe. And I asked him, which camps were they living in? Name the camps. He couldn't. When I asked him, why did Joe Gabi get killed by a bomb in a suburb called Ashton Park? Why was he was shot. Why was he shot by apartheid agents in a suburb in Harare? And why was the ANC, and then he said, no, the ANC were chased out of Zimbabwe. Then I said, okay, if the ANC were chased out of Zimbabwe, how come the ANC headquarters in Zimbabwe was bombed in 1987? We proved that Ike didn't know what he was talking about. And like you're saying, the problem with our leaders is the ANC have not told us the full truth.
But are you disputing that Black South Africans that left weren't told you must be based here? Are you disputing that? Are you saying Black South Africans could be anywhere they want, trade as much as they want, set up businesses freely?
Correct.
That's your argument.
That's why I've always said that.
No, I'm saying, is that your argument?
That is my argument, and I'll explain why.
That's why Rutendo. But we can.
No. Hold on. But remember, we don't want opinions. We want facts.
No, I hear you. And I'm saying that's why we'll check the facts.
So that's why I've always.
And I need to raise this because, besides history, you may be proven right. And I will apologize if you're right. Currently, if you want to win over Black South Africans, they will not currently agree to do whatever you want. They'll probably start with be based here and behave like this, and then maybe you can sell them an idea differently later.
But what I've always said to Black South Africans is it's all good for you to always want things to work your way. But when you wanted independence and your leaders came into our countries, they got their way from our governments. You
can't say that to a 20-year-old.
Why not?
Because they weren't there.
No, that's the same as an apartheid, a person who's benefited from apartheid saying that.
I'm not defending them, Rutendo. I'm
No,
trying to explain that you're saying your father agreed to this, and you're like, oh, okay.
You're a beneficiary of it. I'm not just saying your father agreed. Yes.
You're 100% correct.
So what do you think?
And I'm saying when you try to convince them, this is what I'm trying to explain to you. Because you and I are sitting here, you and I are fine. I'd like to think in our lives. You and I are trying to do the work of the ANC and ZANU. I think this is actually what we're trying to do here. You're trying to explain the situation of your Zimbabwean people that are illegal in my country, as an example. And I'm trying to explain to you my issue with my people and what they're saying. So you can't tell me, but we both know history. I'm like, I hear you. I'm trying to explain the psychology because you need to help me to explain to the 20-year-old why what you're saying holds water. And if you can't convince me, I'm obviously not going to tell these people to understand. And I'm telling you now, the young people, yes, they're beneficiaries. Yes, sure. But I'm telling you, telling them something like that, but white people come, but we agreed at CODESA. I don't care what you agreed with Mandela at CODESA. Yes, I may be a beneficiary of B, but I don't care. And I'm telling you now, I will not accept. And you can't tell me when ZANU and whatever they did back then agree. You can't tell a 20-year-old that. They can say yes, but I don't care. I'm telling you now, between me and you, because we're here. They did. I'm telling you now, sit with me and listen to what I'm saying.
But this is the problem. The society cannot make its own rules, and they cannot feel the way they want. Leadership must make rules. We were not given an option to say whether we cared about the ANC coming into our country and then us being bombed by the Boers. We didn't have a choice. Our government said, we are going to fight for this country, and we're going to suffer, and we're going to have our economy destabilized, and we're going to send our soldiers to go and fight. We're even going to run the risk of being bombed by nuclear weapons, but we're going to do it until South Africa gets independence. It's not open for debate. That's what our government did to us. And many people have flighted this clip with Mugabe saying, we are not going to fight wars for South Africa. And I keep saying to South Africans, did you expect Mugabe to tell the strategy, his war strategy, and what he wanted to do to the Boers on TV?
Yeah, but that's not fair what you're doing. Because this is now propaganda.
Because he said what he said.
But now this is propaganda.
No.
You're defending him. You speak about evidence and facts. You're defending him without evidence and facts.
Let me answer.
Sure.
You can't say there's no evidence and facts because Mugabe said that on TV while our soldiers were fighting the Boers. He said that on TV
we don't know
while...
why they were fighting the Boers. It may not have been for South Africans.
No, we know why they were fighting the Boers.
No, but we don't know.
We do.
Mugabe never said it. You're speaking about leaders, right? You're the ones who's saying the argument is leaders make rules.
Yes.
And if leaders are saying that, you can't then come and spin and say, but in this instant, this is different.
No.
Because that's what you're doing now.
No leader.
We don't know if those
soldiers
were fighting
listen to me first.
Mugabe never said it.
Listen to me first.
Sure.
No leader is going to give his military strategy on television.
They shouldn't, correct.
That's obvious.
Sure.
So when you guys expected Mugabe to say, yes, we're going to back up the ANC, we're going to fight war, that's not how it's supposed to be done.
But if Mugabe said we'll fight for SA, you'd be saying, but Mugabe said...
But he did say it. And Thabo Mbeki did say it. Thabo Mbeki has got an entire speech where he's talking about the celebration of Mugabe because Mugabe backed South Africa's war.
So he said two contradictory things.
He didn't say two contradictory things. He said something and did something. There's a difference. Where you say words to put off your...
I'm not going to buy this.
No, you don't have to buy it.
Sure.
What we're talking is facts. Mugabe said something.
We can't say it's facts.
No, it's not a fact that Zimbabwe fought wars for South Africa.
We don't know if Mugabe said they weren't.
Why did Mugabe go to Mozambique?
No, I'm not.
Did Zimbabwe go to Mozambique to fight?
I just want to say this. So you set rules of engagement now, which is okay, of saying that leaders must make decisions, which is okay.
Yeah.
I was hoping that when you finish, I'll be like, if that's the case, then it must be correct to say it's the ANC that's at fault for why we have illegal foreigners here. If we're saying the leaders make the rules and not just
why should it be the ANC that's at fault?
You said the leaders set the rules.
Yes.
And if they are comfortable with illegal foreigners here and black South Africans are not happy, then black South Africans must blame them. In the same way that you're saying ZanaPF told Zimbabweans, hey, we're going to help our neighbors. And you guys had no choice in the matter. So then if you guys ever had an issue with black South Africans, you should say, or South Africans, you should say ZANU said we must do this.
No, the thing is, we never had
the second thing with the government setting rules was going to be, if we're going to talk about facts and those things, which is okay, and when certain facts and evidence are brought up, then we spin it. It becomes difficult now.
Like how? Give an example.
An example is Mugabe saying we will not fight wars for South Africa.
Yes.
Right. Something he said.
Yes.
And it's
then what did he do?
And this is what people were countering. No, I'm not even arguing. I almost don't care. By the way, sorry.
Yeah.
My issue is when you want to say stats and facts, and then I'm like, oh, here's the stats and facts, and then you say no, but that's not what was happening. Then it almost doesn't matter what people say or what stats I find, because then the debate is going to be between who was doing what and for what reason.
No. It's a problem for you to use military propaganda as a fact. It's not a fact. The fact is what was happening on the ground. So I can tell you that we're not going to war. While I'm deploying my soldiers to attack your side, I'm doing that to catch you by surprise. That is done all the time. No military general tells his plans on a national television that I'm going to fight.
I think that's an opinion.
It's not an opinion, it's a fact.
No, I'm saying my opinion?
Yeah.
Not a fact. What you're saying is not a fact.
Then let's go and look at military.
That Mugabe said something that he didn't mean and he did something different.
Yeah, but
for me, that's how I accept what
that's why I'm asking you the question. Are you saying Zimbabwe didn't go to war for South Africa because of supporting South Africa?
No, I don't know. And,
right.
And in this context, I also don't care.
I know, and I care.
No
problem. And the reason why it's important for us to straighten this is that a nation doesn't go to war and deploy 12,000 of its own soldiers for fun.
Sure.
And it does not do that just because it is trying to be cute. Because it costs money.
Sure.
Zimbabwe had an option not to fight a war for South Africa's freedom by simply adhering to what the apartheid government had said.
Yeah.
Come, let's form the constellation of Southern African states. Don't worry about black people in South Africa. I recognize the Bantustans. Have a diplomat of yours in our country, and we will live like separate states and accept our separate development in our country. Mugabe refused that.
By the way, I love Mugabe. I just need people to know I'm one of the people that largely, not fully, I don't support anyone fully. I'm one of the people that largely supported Mugabe, and the history of Zimbabwe is one of the most beautiful stories for people.
But if you don't know that Zimbabwe went to war for South Africa, then you don't know the history of.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, hold on.
No,
you said you don't. You said you don't care. You said you don't know and you don't care.
But if you want to spin propaganda on me here,
I'm not spinning propaganda.
I can't support anything.
I don't want you to support. I want you to know the history.
Yes, but
so you said you didn't know.
I said
you said you didn't know that Zimbabwe went to war for South Africa.
Okay, but I wasn't picking a side.
So it's important for me to let you know that Zimbabwe fought wars.
And I said, in my personal opinion, the example you used to me is an opinion.
But we're not discussing opinion, we're discussing facts.
No, we're not.
So is it a fact that Zimbabwe fought a war for South Africa? Yes or no? It is yes.
We're not discussing a fact.
Why not? Why shouldn't we discuss a fact?
It's not a fact just because you say it's a fact.
No, it's written. You can prove.
That
you can
Mugabe
prove.
said we're going to war for South Africa.
No, we went to war for South Africa. We didn't say. There's a difference between saying and doing.
I'm trying to let you speak and say your thing, and now when you make it about me and it's not about
my problem is we're here to set the record straight. And
I understand
and you want to run away from an opportunity to get the record put straight to you.
I'm not going to agree.
You want to run. I don't want you to agree. I want you to know the facts.
And you're allowed to say it.
That's right. So
but
what?
Don't expect me to say yes.
What you should be doing?
Just let me keep quiet.
I'm not asking you to say yes. I'm asking you to let me say the facts. You don't want me to say the facts. And the question is, why wouldn't you want me to say the facts? Why do you want us to hide the fact that a war was fought in South Africa by other countries other than South Africa? Why do you resist to hear that, then ask why the ANC has not created an impression or created the truth to make people understand why we are where we are? The ANC understands that when they went into other people's countries, they didn't have visas. They know that they were allowed into these countries. They know that other countries got attacked by the Boers for that. They know that these countries had to end up defending themselves because they would not chase the ANC out of their borders. And they got attacked by the Boers for that. Why is this fact being hidden? Why are we stopped from saying this on mainstream South African TV? And now I'm on an alternative media. I'm also feeling like I'm being muzzled from saying that fact. Why? Because that's what causes our differences. That's what causes our fights. Because our people seem to believe that no country helped South Africa to get its independence. Yet there are countries that lost over 600,000 lives in Southern Africa fighting wars against the Boers for independence and for harboring so-called illegal immigrants who came into the countries without papers, who came into the countries with firearms, and who came into the countries and established bases so that they could start attacking back in South Africa.
Are you willing to listen to the people of South Africa and their wishes and thoughts?
Yes, I am.
Does it not matter?
I am willing to listen to the people of South Africa so long as their arguments are reasonable. So let me tell you what I mean by that. You have a lot of people here who you are also beginning to say in South Africa that 30% matric passes. People who know nothing. People who don't know what they studied at school. People who pass with 30%. They are not allowed to have an opinion on medicine. They're not allowed to have an opinion on accounting. They're not allowed to have an opinion on important matters, but for some reason it's okay for them to have an opinion on diplomatic relations or geopolitical affairs. I don't think that's fair because they don't know enough to argue, which is what we're trying to say here, that it cannot be that you can argue that there was no war for South Africa and Zimbabwe didn't fight for South Africa because I heard Mugabe saying it. But what are the facts? The facts must be put on the table. And those without the facts should listen to those with the facts. And those without the facts shouldn't have an opinion based on ignorance. That's what I believe. So
if a black South African has an opinion that doesn't meet your criteria, you don't want to listen to them, is what you're saying.
If a person does not have a reasonable argument.
Forget the reasonable argument. It's a black South African.
Why should we forget the reasonable argument? Yet that is the test even in a court.
My question to you was do you care about the opinion of ordinary black South Africans?
I answered the question, but you don't care to listen to what I'm saying.
No, I heard your answer, and I'm saying
no. You didn't hear my answer. You didn't hear my answer. The test of a reasonable person is what is even used in court.
I'm not asking about court.
We cannot have a discussion and a debate and listen to people who are unreasonable.
So that's why I asked the second
question. So I will listen
you're saying if they don't meet your criteria, you don't care.
If they're not reasonable, I don't care. It's not my criteria. It is an established common criteria.
The reason I say it has to be your criteria is because the 30%ers and even below, they get to vote in this country.
Yeah.
They can apply for tenders in this country.
That's right.
They can conduct business. So even in a court of law, their opinion matters.
No, in a court of law, they still have to give a reasonable argument.
No, I'm saying you mentioned 30%.
Yeah.
And ignorance and whatever.
Yes, that was an example, by the way.
No, that's
I didn't say that's the qualifying.
And that's why I'm asking you. It seems like you have a criteria for black South Africans that you want to listen to.
I've got a criteria for any human being that wants to put an argument that I must listen to, that it must be a reasonable argument.
So the ordinary black South African...
And the person must know what they're talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the ordinary black South African has got an issue with our borders and illegal foreigners.
Yeah.
And they feel like they're not being heard. And on an individual level, I'm not really affected, to be honest. I'm probably one of the beneficiaries of illegal foreigners in the sense that, they provide cheap labor. They provide cheap labor. They bring in certain products that maybe we wouldn't get. There's the argument for lazy South Africans and they hardworking. So they help build parts of our economy. But the ordinary black South African now is the voter, is the person that toys, is the person that is going to harm maybe a friend of mine who owns a spaza shop, who owns a car workshop, or who cleans my house. And I have, to what you were saying earlier about you want to make money, but you realize the responsibility we have. So now you have a voice to be like, when people ask, Pen, so what's your stance on illegal? Initially, I was like, hey, I don't care. Operation Tutul, I'm like, I don't care. And then people are like, look, we want to hear from you. So then I sit and then you and I speak, and you speak about Zimbabwean issues, which I'm very sensitive about, because I have a lot of Zimbabwean friends that are in Zimbabwe and that are here. My friends. The fact that they're Zimbabwean is just a tag. They could be white, they could be who the fuck, they're my friends. And I care about them. So then you're like, since my friends are being frustrated, I'd like to hear what the issue is. Then I have to go back to ordinary South Africans and they get angry. You've seen them in the comments, especially with your debates with Ike. When I speak to you and I hear you, in wanting to assist your agenda on behalf of Zimbabweans and on behalf of SADC and on behalf of Africans and on behalf of black people, I want to be able to go and speak to them, whoever they may be. They can be ignorant, they can be smart, they can be knowledgeable. I want to speak to them in a way that they understand. It's say, guys, these are our brothers and let's try and help them out. And let's see how we can hold hands, because they're not coming here to take your jobs. They're not coming here to destroy you. They're not coming here to steal your woman. They're trying to make a life, and I need us to understand. And it becomes difficult to then go and speak to them if, when you even try and engage on this platform, it's almost like their opinions don't matter. And that's one of the things that comes across from not just yourself, from many Zimbabweans that are trying to articulate the issue. Because there's this air of even arrogance. You guys don't have O levels. You guys have a 30% pass rate. We have better HIV facilities. And you're like, yes, sis. Who the hell is this O speaking to me? Then just go home. You know what I mean? And then you kind of lose the same person you're trying to win, which is divide and conquer. And it's the fact that we're debating even colonial education systems and we can't just speak as brothers becomes part of the issue on how we're going to struggle to find middle ground, because we're trying to win.
The problem, Penuel, is
together.
You're trying to get to a situation where everybody runs the country.
No, I'm not. I don't believe in democracy.
It is. That's why you want us to break through to everybody and listen to everybody's story.
Not me.
But you are.
No, I'm talking
you're
about...
You're saying we must
audience.
break through to the ordinary South African.
Can I say something?
No, let me finish.
Okay.
You're saying we must break through to the ordinary South African and the ordinary guy. And I'm saying we don't have to break through to the ordinary guy and every South African. We have to break through to those that actually make the difference. Those that make the rules, those that make the laws, those that create the education system, those that can actually have seminars and education campaigns to actually make a difference in the country.
Is that the ANC?
And that's government. That's government. Because in every country, in every country,
if there's an issue,
in every country,
we must blame the ANC.
No, but you were talking about who we need to be speaking to. I'm not here trying to convince everybody, because I'll never convince everybody, because people are at different levels of understanding.
I hear what you're saying.
People don't. There are people who don't read. There are people who don't understand their history. There are people who don't even understand what I'm saying. Our job is to try to reach out to those who have the capacity to understand and the decision makers, so that they can then create what is required to educate everybody else.
And it filters down.
It filters down. If I try to convince everybody, it'll never work. Because the majority of people will never grasp what you and I are talking about here. They will never understand. Plus, what we're trying to fight also is a system where people act like they want to learn, they want to understand, but once you start giving them information that goes outside what they believe, they don't want to hear it.
Which is very standard human behavior.
Yes, but that kind of a human being that doesn't want to hear anything that goes outside their belief system is probably not the human being we should be speaking to. Because any person that is reasonable will always listen to understand what they know and to understand what they might not know, then they can make a decision. Anybody who tries to shut out any other opinion, which is what your media does here, SABC does it, the 702 does it, the ENCN do it, they deliberately close out other perspectives.
But you do as well.
I don't. The reason why...
You have your own opinion of what a reasonable man is.
But I listen.
No, you might listen.
But I listen.
But you also have a bias.
But I don't have a bias. That's why I'm trying to say to you that I don't have a bias. What I do is I ventilate what everybody else has not been ventilated.
Sure.
And I dogmatically do it because 98% of what is being ventilated leaves out what it is that I'm saying. I have no obligation to advance the other dominant narrative without giving the undominant narrative an opportunity to be heard. The reason why the issue of sanctions in Zimbabwe is beginning to be heard is because I dogmatically stood and said what it is that people have been saying for the past 23 years.
Sure.
And that's the only reason why people began to hear that, oh, there is sanctions. And that's why the policy in South Africa started changing even from a government level, is that people started realizing there are sanctions, what's with these sanctions, what's going on. And that's how the United Nations also came to Zimbabwe. It's our organization that put pressure on the government of Zimbabwe and the UN for them to come to the country. Had I not done that, had I tried to be unbiased, we would have continued to have a dominant narrative that says there are no sanctions in Zimbabwe. The UN would have never come through.
Shout out to you and your organization.
Thank you.
I will never take anything away from you for fighting for Zimbabwe and Zimbabwean people. That is extremely noble.
So let me just close. So we do care what everybody in South Africa thinks. But at the end of the day, we care more about what the policymaker thinks, because they're the ones that are going to bring a change.
Sure.
Just listening to opinions that don't give us a change doesn't build a nation. That is why at the end of the day, we've got a parliament that constitutes what we call the opinions of the people. Lots of times the people are not happy with what the parliament concludes, but that is how we work these systems. Otherwise, if we had to listen to everybody, we would never run anything, would never run a country. If South Africans want to be prejudiced because they don't understand the Zimbabwe situation, then it means apartheid was justified. Because apartheid was a prejudice. It believed that black South Africans were not human, and believed that black South Africans should live in Bantustans, and it believed that this is the way it was, and whenever black people wanted to leave Bantustans to come into South Africa, they were not justified. They needed passes, and without a pass, they were illegal. The apartheid government was not right to have that perspective. We also believe that for South Africans to insist, and other Africans, on legality and illegality based on borders created by an illegal act of colonialism, and for us to try and establish laws on this illegal act of colonialism, we feel it's illegitimate.
Sure.
And we have proved it in our own country that when South Africans had to leave their country without visas, they were accepted to leave their countries into our countries without issues, because we believed in the principle of Pan-Africanism and that Africa is for Africans.
At that time.
At that time.
Sure. There was a reason I was asking if you care about the opinions of ordinary black South Africans. I explained part of the reason.
Yeah.
When it comes to me personally, I don't believe in democracy. I am one of those people that believes that people should qualify what you call a reasonable man test, whether it's a percentage or whatever. I do believe that only a certain, the class is not the word, only a certain level of literacy, understanding the political landscape, the consequences of decisions, only those people should be allowed to do things like vote. So if you were to ask me, I agree with you in that it shouldn't be that ordinary South Africans should get to choose.
And you also believe certain South Africans or certain people don't deserve to live. They should be killed off if our society is still going to progress.
I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I even say that?
You've said it.
That is absurd. So I even wish politically you'd qualify to vote. But it goes back, and maybe this is going to be my parting shot. It's going to go back to the ordinary South African to then be like, since Rutendo was speaking about, look, there are decision makers, there are policy makers, there are people that sit. We have issues with the borders, but we're kind of comfortable with this colonial parliament, but we've accepted that they make the decisions. It is fundamentally important that the ordinary South African considers who their decision makers are, because those are the people that now end up either making decisions or conveniently don't make decisions, which lead to conflicts happening. Whether they intended or unintended, where now the ordinary man fights with his brother and his sister. And it's silly because the leaders are quiet. So we really need to introspect on that. And my stance is still, I don't think the ANC are the right leadership. I'd prefer someone else, even if it is done intelligently, like a Mugabe, to say, what would be the right thing to say? No, we'll fix the borders, or we'll create the borders. Zimbabwe will pay for it. Or on the other hand, we must remove the borders one after, whatever you're saying, but then you look at the work they're doing on the ground and you're like, okay, I like my leader, because every now and then it's like, no, the Zimbabweans must go. And then when you look at the great work that's being done in Zim, and they're helping Zimbabwean people fix their country and fix their economy, and they're creating trade agreements. I'm like, I think this guy is dope. Guys, watch what he's doing. Don't listen to the words.
My question to you is one: why are we focused on illegal immigrants when your biggest threat is people who want to take a part of your country and potentially utilize that part of your country to become another Israel that will eventually take all your land in South Africa? Why are we focused on the illegal immigrants and African and not really focused on a British man who's coming and saying, let's take a part of the Cape, let's create a nation, which will then be used as a springboard to take more land from South Africa, as happened in the food record? Why are we focused on being divided?
Is that a rhetorical question?
It's a question.
It's a real question.
Yes.
Oh, so one of the other reasons I was asking about ordinary black South Africans is because a lot of them, out of respect for them, don't care about history. Out of respect for them, they don't care about history. They care about their lived reality now, which is very dangerous, and why they shouldn't probably be in leadership. They would not say it. And again, this is the Mugabe Act. They are pro-black and pan-African in mouth. But when you look at their actions, where they spend their money, who they want to hire them, when you're like, go work for this guy, not going to work for. But here, they number one, we need a state bank and what. The reality is we do have Stockholm syndrome, and we do still cling to our white masters. We prefer them. We don't want them here. We have self-hate. We don't believe that we can actually function fully without white people. And this is not just black South Africans. It's all Africans, or maybe all black people across the world. And that is the reason why when we fight, I mean, it cascades down, right? There's the white American man. And when he's angry, everyone else fights amongst each other. And then it goes down, and then you get to South Africa, the white South African man. And then when he's angry, I don't take it out on him because I'm scared of him and I want money from him. Then I take it out on my woman. And then my woman, when she's angry, she can't take it out on me because she's scared of me. She won't take it out on the white. She takes it out on our kids, specifically our daughters. So it's got that. So that's the real answer. That's why I was asking if it's a rhetorical question. You and I know this. The reality is most other people don't. Black South Africans realistically do not support Cape independence. Again, in mouth. But then if you were to draw the line of, do you realize every rand you're spending is funding, forget Cape independence because that's just a term, but it's funding a wealthier DA-run Western Cape where the headquarters of Woolies, Pick n Pay, First Rand, all of them are there. The reason they have all these huge houses and why they even buy in dollars there is because you're indirectly supporting an illusionary Cape independence now. You are the reason there's Umhlanga Rocks and Palito and Sandhurst, and you are the reason. So please understand that forget mouth. Forget mouth. I tell people now, because Tito Mboweni loves gaslighting people on Twitter, we need a state bank. We had Post Bank. We've got the land bank. Those could have been taken, and all these people, including the EFF and them, they could have been like aggressively, we will bank with the Post Bank. And all of us that bank, they are going to demand that the Post Bank starts having vehicle and asset finance. And
VBS fell under Tito Mboweni, so it's ironic.
So you realize that they're gaslighting people. So again, it goes back to listen to what they're saying, but look at what they're doing. But they're not banking with these banks, and you're like. Anyways, at the end of the day, for the ordinary black South African, they need to introspect, which is one of the most difficult things to do. One of the most difficult, and figure out, are my actions and where I'm investing my resources and energy and create, is it aligned to my ideologies? And if not, I'm a sellout to myself. That's the personal accountability thing.
But then brings me the question, where do people get this perception that Western Cape is well run when the reason why there are less black people in Western Cape than the colored and white population put together is because black people cannot survive in Cape Town? You've got so many Xhosas born in Cape Town. They get educated in Cape Town. They migrate from Eastern Cape to Western Cape to get an education. But whenever they start their jobs, they start there, or they can't even start there. They have to then migrate to Joburg and other. Why? Nobody has ever asked what has made so many. There's hostile, but people try and say that this place is conducive, it's well managed. there wouldn't be so many black people running away from that place to become a minority in their own country if it wasn't for the fact that this place is actually not run so well. It doesn't give opportunity to everybody. You go to Langa, Guguletu, Harare, highest murder rates in the country. Why would people be killing each other? Why would they be killing each other so much if this was a well-run municipality? It's because it is a junkyard for particularly black people, because apartheid is still taking place, and apartheid has never been an equitable system.
But I don't blame white people there.
Oh no, they're looking out for themselves.
Sure. Yeah. I blame the black leadership there
100%.
That is failing to do right by their
100%.
people. 100%. Let's shut it down, Rutendo. Any closing words?
Not today. You gave me a run for my money.
You've been owing me this for so long, and it was going to be my first question, and I was hoping that's all we were going to talk about. Who owns South Africa? And we go through. Maybe I'll maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft a list, and I'm going to ask you to commit before you come here next time.
And we talk about that only.
Can we not discuss Zimbabwe? Can we not discuss... Well, maybe we'll end up discussing Zim and what. But I hope we won't deviate and just go through some of the biggest companies in South Africa, some of the history there. Because I know this is some of the information and knowledge that you can just spit with your eyes closed. And we discuss the Oppenheimers, the Ruperts, some of the unknown. We speak Glencore, which has become more known ever since they got listed. But some of the other unknown, who owns South Africa? Because who owns South Africa also has a huge say in who owns the African continent from an economic perspective, which fundamentally after all this debating, it seems to constantly go back to the economics.
And I think you've taken me back to my closing words. This might be important. A lot of South Africans don't understand why we foreigners, African foreigners, end up talking about South Africa and poking our nose into South Africa's business. South Africa is the capital of Africa, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Economically, it runs this continent. What happens in South Africa influences the rest of the continent. The strategy being deployed by South African business and South African government impacts the whole of the African continent. So that is why South Africa becomes central, important, and very critical to talk about for all Africans, because this country is the seat of power of the African continent. And we believe that this seat of power has the ability to empower the continent so that it doesn't become dependent on South Africa, or it has the ability to dominate the continent in a way that makes people dependent on South Africa. So you look at Congo, for instance. They're thinking of leaving SADC, but they've already gone to the East African Commission or something.
That economic bloc.
Yeah, that economic bloc in the East. And the reason they gave for leaving is they said that SADC is all about South African dominance. Whereas if we go and join Kenya and the other East African countries, it's all about mutual development and mutual growth.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in business meetings or political meetings between our leaders, many leaders are always saying to the South African government, as long as South Africa is dominating and dominant and destroying the competitiveness of other African countries, you're always going to have refugees. You're always going to have Africans coming to your continent, to your country. And if your media is consistently creating the impression that it is not your dominance that is pulling people here and destroying the rest of the continent, but it is mismanagement of the rest of the continent, your people will always continue to resent the rest of Africa until we start having equitable development in the region.
Let me also close off so I can get trolled as well. On that same note, it is definitely also the reason why we have economic migrants within South Africa, because Johannesburg, Durban, Cape Town are not empowering the smaller villages, towns, etc. And that's why you'll keep having informal settlements, cramped townships, so much crime. And I don't even know if there are original inhabitants of Joburg, but anyone who claims that they are Joburg citizen, if you have an issue with crime, overpopulation, and outside of non-South Africans, part of it is you need to share with the rest of South Africa. You need to go and build industries in the smaller towns, smaller cities, so that people can go home and South Africa as a whole can be more competitive. And then it has a ripple effect from there on. Rutendo Matinyarare, thank you so much for coming through, bro.
Thank you so much, brother. Wow.
You boys are
Nice.
Rutendo, still my opinion on that affects.